Blood was running down my arm faster than I could stop it, and the alarm above my head was still screaming when I stumbled into the medical bay. The gash started at my elbow and ended near my wrist, torn open by a metal strut that had snapped loose during the reactor failure on Deck 9. I had not felt it happen. I only knew something was wrong when I looked down and saw my sleeve turning dark red. Dr. Vesic was the first to see me. His 4 eyes locked onto my arm, and every antenna on his head shot straight up. Then he made a sound I had never heard from him before, a high, cracking whistle that seemed to bounce off the walls of the medical bay. Within seconds, 2 more medics rushed in behind him, and the calm room turned into chaos. One of them, a thin alien named Threlka, backed into a shelf and knocked a tray of instruments to the floor. The clatter made everyone flinch except me. I was too busy trying to keep pressure on my arm to care about noise. Vesic's voice cracked through the panic. "Human, your containment layer has failed. Your internal systems are exposed to open air. This is a critical emergency." "It is just a cut," I said, though my voice came out tighter than I wanted. "Just a cut," he repeated, staring at me as if I had said something insane. "Do you understand what open air can do to exposed tissue? Bacteria, spores, foreign particles, all of it can enter your body right now, in this very moment, while we stand here talking." I understood exactly what open air could do. I had grown up learning it the hard way, through scraped knees, cut fingers, and one memorable fall from a bicycle that left a mark on my shin to this day. But explaining childhood scrapes to a panicking alien medic did not seem like the best use of the next 30 seconds, so I reached for my belt kit instead. Every human stationed on this exchange program carried one, a small pouch with bandages, tape, and a bottle of clear liquid that most of the crew treated as a formality. I had never needed to use mine until now. Vesic saw me pull the bottle free, and his whistle rose in pitch. "What is that? What are you holding?" "Disinfectant," I said, cracking the cap. Before he could stop me, I tipped the bottle and poured it straight across the open wound. The reaction in the room was immediate. Vesic let out a sound that I can only describe as a scream, sharp and broken in the middle, like his voice had never been built to make that shape before. Threlka grabbed the medic beside her and pulled her back a full step, as if my wound might somehow spread across the room like fire. A third medic dropped to one knee, hands pressed over the sides of his head. "You poured an unknown chemical directly into an active wound," Vesic said, his voice shaking now. "I watched it burn you. Your face changed. I saw the reaction happen in real time." "It stings a little," I admitted, gritting my teeth as the sharp bite of it settled into my skin. "That is normal. It kills germs before they can get into my blood and cause real trouble." "Normal," Vesic said the word, like it did not belong in his mouth. "You call this normal. Causing yourself pain, on purpose, while fully conscious, with no sedation, and no surgical team present." I did not have time to explain everything to him. My hands were already moving on their own, folding gauze over the wound, and wrapping it tight enough to hold pressure, but loose enough not to cut off circulation. It was a motion I had practiced more times than I could count, first as a teenager learning basic first aid, later in a job that kept a kit in every vehicle I drove. "You get taught this early where I come from," I said, focused on the wrap. "Cuts happen all the time. Dirt gets into them if you are not careful. Clean it first, then bandage it, or it gets worse instead of better." "But the pain," Vesic said, and something in his tone had shifted from panic into confusion. "You caused yourself unnecessary suffering." "It was not unnecessary," I said. "It was maybe 10 seconds of sting. That beats a fever in 3 days, because I got lazy and skipped a step." The room had gone quieter now, though the tension had not fully left. Threlka stepped closer, watching my hands work with an expression I could not quite read. Her 4 eyes tracked every fold of the gauze like she was studying something completely foreign to her, which, I suppose, she was. Administrator Colin appeared in the doorway just as I finished tying off the last strip of tape. He must have heard the commotion from 2 decks away. His eyes swept the room, taking in the scattered instruments, the pale faces of his medics, and finally landing on my bandaged arm. "Someone explain what happened here," he said. Vesic straightened, though his antennae were still trembling slightly. The human sustained an open wound during the reactor incident. He then, without hesitation, poured a burning chemical directly onto the exposed tissue. He did this alone, without a medical team, without sedation, while speaking to us the entire time. Colin's eyes narrowed, moving from Vesic to me and back again. "Is this true?" "It is disinfectant," I said again, holding up the now empty bottle as proof. "Alcohol. It kills bacteria on contact. A short sting now is a lot better than an infection setting in later, especially on a ship full of germs my body has never encountered before." Colin studied me the way you study a puzzle that refuses to fit the picture on the box. "Your species treats injury this way, as routine, as something to be handled alone, in the moment, without waiting for outside help." "We do not always have outside help waiting," I said. "Sometimes you are the only one there, so you learn to handle it yourself. Wounds do not clean themselves while you wait for someone else to arrive." Vesic had finally stopped trembling. He stepped forward slowly and examined the wrap I had done, testing the edges with careful fingers, checking the tightness the way any trained medic would. I braced for him to criticize the work, but instead, his whistle softened into something lower and steadier. "It will hold," he said finally. Reluctantly, he added, "It is well done." "High praise," I said, managing a small smile despite the ache still throbbing under the bandage. Colin had not moved from the doorway. His eyes stayed fixed on me a moment longer before he spoke again, quieter this time, almost to himself. "I will be recommending that every future joint mission includes a human medic on standby. Your species appears to treat disaster as a simple inconvenience rather than a crisis." "I would not go that far," I said, flexing my fingers to make sure everything still worked properly. "We just do not get the luxury of falling apart the moment something goes wrong. Somebody has to keep moving. Might as well be whoever is already hurt, since they already know exactly how bad it is." The whistle that came from Vesic this time was different from before. Lower, almost amused, though I still was not sure his kind smiled the way we did. Threlka finally released the breath she seemed to have been holding since I first walked through the door, and the tension in the room eased into something closer to disbelief. "Humans," Colin said, and it did not sound like a complaint anymore. It sounded like a question he had not finished asking himself. Later, after the bay had cleared and the alarms had finally gone silent, Vesic sat beside me while I waited for the swelling to go down. He kept glancing at the bandage, then at my face, as if trying to reconcile the calm expression I wore with the wound underneath it. "Does it still hurt?" he asked. "A little," I admitted. "It will for a day or two, then it starts to heal, and eventually you forget it was ever there." He was quiet for a moment, processing that. "On my planet, we are taught to avoid pain entirely," he said. "Every injury goes through proper channels, proper teams, proper sedation. We do not touch our own wounds. We are trained not to." "That sounds safer," I said honestly. "Perhaps," he said, "but you did not wait for safety. You simply acted." I shrugged, careful not to jostle my arm. Waiting has its place, but sometimes the wound will not wait for you to feel ready. You do what needs doing, even if it stings a little, because the alternative is worse. Vesic nodded slowly, filing that away in whatever part of his mind stored new and unsettling truths about the galaxy's most reckless species. Before he left, he paused at the door and looked back at me one last time. "I think," he said carefully, "I understand your species a little better now." "I doubt that," I said, smiling despite the ache in my arm, "but I appreciate you trying." He left without another word, and I sat alone in the quiet medical bay, listening to the low hum of the ship around me, my arm throbbing steadily beneath the bandage I had wrapped myself. It was not the last time they would panic over something I considered routine, but it was the first time I saw real respect in their eyes instead of fear, and that, more than the wound itself, was the part I carried with me long after the pain had faded.